Hello and welcome to this video on one of the many ways your brain lies and tricks you. How many times have you read a title or heard someone say that there is a face, figure, or other slightly amorphic shape in a random jumble of objects? Pattern detection is an essential element to life. Knowing that the seasons come and go with regularity is what allows you to know when to sow crops, to make a model and predict how the world will respond to your actions. It leads to a knowledge that some actions and places are dangerous or bad. More than less lessons about what we need to extrapolate to other events and things for the survival. This system is not perfect. The difficulty in differentiating faces from other ethnicities is a good example. They retain novelty, and so the pattern never becomes properly established, and we have nothing to prime us. It can also be overreactive, and we see this in less clear-cut images, structures, and ideas. It is a phenomena called face pareidolia, a phenomena going all the way back to the Neolithic. Rocks were used as symbols and simulacrums of animals. These were amorphized into human-like shapes. Later, we have the tale of a man on the moon, the modern version of which is a 2,000-year-old zombie showing up on your toast. It is thought and theorized that people who are more religious or believe in the supernatural are more prone towards this, but it's shown to be an issue of neuroses rather than religiosity. If you are neurotic or generally in a negative mood, you are more likely to experience pareidolia. It seems to stem from being on edge or frantic, and this can be extrapolated back to Neolithic age and even earlier cavemen. They needed to be on edge in order to be able to respond to imminent threats, like a lion, tiger, or bear. Therefore, being able to quickly identify something, even if it turns out not to be there, would allow them to respond better and therefore survive. This means we've had a degree of artificial selection that has chosen those members of the species more likely to have the trait. Curiously, women also seem to be more likely to identify faces where there are none. This is thought to have some association with their ability to better recognize and understand emotions, and therefore deciphering what is going on behind the scenes, so to speak. This phenomena has not insignificant ramifications. One simple example is from 1994. Diane Ducier from the United States of America was able to see an image of the Virgin Mary on a grilled cheese sandwich. She was able to sell this on eBay for $28,000. Our efforts to develop neural networks have also begun to exhibit a similar phenomena. Google's Deep Dream neural network is recognizing faces and images in random objects, even if there is no face present to recognize. We may not fully understand why this is occurring in all cases, and especially for humans. There have been several efforts to try and figure it out. One of these was a collaboration between the University of Toronto and research institutes in China. They were trying to figure out what goes on in the brain of people when they see random imagery. They recruited 20 Chinese men and asked them to look at a variety of images while in a functional magnetic resonance imaging machine. This records changes in the magnetic properties of the cells in the brain, and therefore allows a researcher to know what parts of the brain are active and how active they are. They were able to prime their brain by simply showing them a series of images that were somewhat obscured. They used a static overlay to create noise that distorted the image's properties. They were then able to follow this up by showing them images of faces, letters, numbers, and a few other different things, and then finally, images that had no particular purpose. They were simply black and white noise. Providing the shaped and known images was able to prime the brain, and this can be demonstrated by the week-long delay between showing them those images and the follow-up of this static. Having their brain primed to respond, they found a surprisingly high incidence of faces and other images in the static where there shouldn't have been any. Another study by Sonja Winhager of the University of Vienna found that physical structures in vehicles, buildings, and similar could indicate a variety of different things. One simple example is the round headlamps and a small radiator were associated with youth and femininity. Meanwhile, square and wide bodies were perceived as masculine and adult. This was consistent across cultures, including remote regions of Ethiopia, who had never had access or seen cars. That is, the movie Cars, not the physical product or commodity of cars. It's thought that the entire process is a product of top-down sensory input and processing. That is, the way our brain has been primed at a level where we are conscious of what's going on influences where and how the brain processes the sensory input from the eyes. This therefore biases the interpretation. That bias allows people to see things that are not there. It also drastically alters who will experience what, why, and how. Based on your own consciousness, you are likely to be primed differentially. That means parts of your brain will be activated differently to someone else based on their experiences and personality, and therefore they will mentally and cognitively identify something different to what you do. This is not to say that Jesus in a sandwich is a pathology. By no means is it a pathology at all. In fact, it should be considered a normal function of the brain. The frontal cortex is where the personality and a lot of conscious and cognitive function is held. It also has a role to play in visual perception. When you get these two areas overlapping, you will find that the quote, seeing is believing, should instead be replaced with believing is seeing. There is another possible reason. Carl Sagan put forward the theory that we are seeing these faces as an evolutionary adaptation. The need to quickly be able to tell one face from another would have allowed our ancestors to easily identify who was an enemy and who wasn't. That would better allow them to be able to survive. Better survival means greater procreation. This may also have a certain carry-on effect by selecting for individuals that had a more diverse set of facial features, which may be why, compared to other species, our faces are far more unique to an individual. There's also a thought that infants who were unable to recognize a face would smile back less actively. If children and infants don't smile, their parents are unlikely to become attached to them. Without attachment, they may well be abandoned or simply die. If the parents were attached, then it would allow the children and infants to survive, or at least have a greater probability of surviving. Then there is the example we mentioned early on, predators. If you can have even a split second more to react to a predator, that is a split second more you have to survive and pass on your genes. Pareidolia is one of the major causes of UFO and religious sightings. It is a rational explanation that is often overlooked, even if we don't fully understand what happens at the neurological level. It is one of the reasons why the UFO and religious industries are some of the most profitable out there. This concept is not limited to just religious figures and aliens, but extends to the humanizing or amorphization of vehicles, plants, and other objects. The shocked PowerPoint is a great example. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it interesting, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please post comments, questions, and suggestions below.